From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. Hey, it's Dina. Back in February, the backbone of Mississippi's healthcare system went dark.
We begin with news of a major cyber attack at the University of Mississippi Medical Center that has shut down systems across the state.
It was a ransomware attack, and the target was Epic, the massive electronic record system that stores patient data, medications, lab results, and medical histories. Across Mississippi, roughly 36 clinics closed for over a week. Elective surgeries were canceled, outpatient imaging postponed, and while hospitals and ER departments stayed open, doctors and nurses suddenly had to document patient care the old-fashioned way, with pen and paper. And that matters. Studies show cyber attacks on hospitals lead to longer ER wait times and higher mortality rates. It took about a week and a half for the systems at the medical center to come back online. Clinics eventually reopened, but the real cost of an attack like this, financial, human, is much harder to measure. And hearing this story made us think about another hospital, a smaller one that faced a cyber attack of its own. Because while ransomware attacks on hospitals are becoming more common, insider stories about how hospitals actually survive them are not. So today, we're revisiting a story we reported earlier. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here, a podcast about the people making and breaking our digital world. Healthcare has become the most targeted sector of the economy when it comes to ransomware attacks. In February alone, they accounted for 31% of the attacks launched across industries. And the story we're going back to today, one that takes place at Sky Lakes Medical Center, ended up becoming a kind of playbook for hospitals hit by ransomware.
I'm an evangelist now around this topic. Whoever will listen, we need to talk about this.
Stay with us. Sky Lakes Medical Center rests at the foot of the Cascade Mountains, about 4,000 feet up. It's a sleek, modern hospital, 176 beds, tucked away in Klamath Falls, Oregon, right off US 97 in the south-central part of the state. And out here, it's quiet, remote, even isolated.
In order to leave that area, you have to ascend mountain range. And so traveling for a lot of people in the community can be very challenging, especially during the winter.
This is John Gady. He was the IT director for Sky Lakes Medical Center.
In rural hospitals, you can't just go across the block or 2 miles across town to get to another hospital. You don't have a diversion option, right? You can't divert your emergency department.
The next closest facility is 70 miles and a mountain pass away. Which is why when something goes wrong at a place like Sky Lakes, it isn't just inconvenient, it's debilitating, even potentially life-threatening. John was asleep when his phone rang in the middle of the night, the kind of call that almost always means something's gone wrong.
My wife is a light sleeper, very light. So she, of course, is awakened by the phone call, and she listens to the conversation.
A nurse had dialed up the hospital's IT department, saying something was wrong with her computer. The electronic patient records were taking forever to upload, and her email access was completely gone too. The on-call engineer did what IT people do. He logged onto the network to take a look.
He saw the CPUs on the computers pegged. They're all maxed out.
The processors were running hot. Not just busy, they were sprinting. Which was odd, but not impossible. Maybe a scheduled task, a backup cycle, something benign. John checked the email server, and that's when it stopped feeling benign. There it was, a note, plain text, from a Russian ransomware gang known as Ryuk, and it said,
"We have taken over your entire network."
Everything's encrypted with .ryk. All your folders are encrypted. Everything's locked up.
They didn't know it yet, but what was happening to Skylakes was starting to happen everywhere. It was the fall of 2020, and hospitals battling the pandemic were already gasping for air. Beds were full, staff was exhausted, PPE was running out.
We're using extra wings of the hospital that hadn't been used for patient care in years.
And in the middle of all that, hackers made a cold strategic calculation that if you hit a healthcare system in freefall, it won't fight. It'll pay the ransom. Skylakes Medical Center, already at capacity, was just one of their many victims that year. Still, no one working with John was panicking, at least not right away, because they had a plan, backups, offsite servers, and a playbook for this kind of attack. So when John walked in that night, he didn't hesitate. He gave the order. Run the backup, he said. Start with communications. And there were a few clicks. Then a flicker of hope as the email system began to stir. And then,
within 5 minutes, it was being encrypted again.
their emergency plan vanished before their eyes as the ransomware now started taking down their backup systems too. They could see it hunting for any file, any fragment, and then seizing it and sealing it. Backups weren't going to get them out of this. So John gave another order.
I said, we're going offline right now. We made an executive, right-in-the-moment decision. We're shutting everything offline.
Next, he needed to let everyone know what was happening so they could keep the hospital running. But they didn't have email. The hackers had locked that up. So they decided to hold a massive video conference call, since it was hosted off-site and they had dozens of licenses for that. So John got the word out for the hospital's nearly 2,000 employees to kind of buddy up. And they gathered around the cell phones of anyone with access to video conference software. And then he told them the truth, that Skylakes had been attacked and they needed everyone's help to fix it. Everyone, he said, not just the IT team.
Any computers in their areas, they were to turn them off. So that then spread by word of mouth. So every system went off. Every computer went off.
And to understand just how enormous that was, you've got to picture it. 2,500 computers, 600 servers, every function of a modern hospital, finance, patient records, communications, the pharmacy, all of it had to go offline.
The only thing that was running in the hospital were directly attached devices to patients.
Things like ventilators, cardiac monitors, IV pumps. The machines that literally keep people alive, those could stay on because they were connected to patients, not to the internet. But everything else, gone. Now that the systems were off so the ransomware wouldn't spread, they faced another problem: simple logistics. Because they didn't have working computers, even the most basic routines had to be reimagined. Take something as simple as giving someone medication.
When you're going to dispense a medication, you scan the patient armband, and it's checking, is this the right medication? Is it the right dose? Is it the right time? How does it interact with other medications? How does it interact with...
All of that, the scanning, the cross-checking, the safeguards, they all had to do that the same way doctors did 100 years ago, with paper and pens. John sent people out to buy them, in bulk.
We bought out pretty much all the paper in our community at Staples and Walmart.
Doctors scribbled, nurses adapted, clipboards multiplied, and for a little while it worked. The analog stopgaps held. But it turns out that kind of resilience has a clock.
But when you hit 72 hours and beyond, you find out that all of those procedures and processes you had for the paper world start to break apart.
Take drawing blood. That happens hundreds of times a day in a hospital, usually sent over the network instantly by a doctor to the lab. But of course, that wasn't an option anymore.
So we tried faxing, but what you discover when all of a sudden you have all your intensive care unit, your ICU orders, all of your OR, the operating room orders.
With blood draw orders coming in from all over the hospital, things pile up.
That technology is slow, so all of a sudden a stat lab order could take 30 minutes to fax up to the laboratory, right? And so those processes break down.
Their machines were sending out so many faxes, they literally started to smoke. So John turned to something even more antiquated, a human.
To move the paper between the various operations and clinical areas of the hospital to help us move paper.
So people instead of electrons.
Yes.
A doctor would write the order on paper and someone would quite literally run it across the hospital. It wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't easy, but the emergency room stayed open. And the hospital somehow kept breathing. But their eyes had to turn to a bigger question now. What happened? How did the hackers get in? And why would they come for a rural hospital in Southern Oregon? That's when we come back. We follow the trail inside the Skylakes hack and go into the strange new world where healthcare and hackers collide. Stay with us.
It is called Internet.
I use the World Wide Web information superhighway.
Cybersecurity. Why do things go viral?
Click here.
Skylakes thought they were the target. It turns out they were part of a wave. In 2020, hospitals weren't just healing the sick, they were under attack.
Inside Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center, computer screens have been dark.
A hack on a critical healthcare system causing havoc nationwide and in Nevada.
It doesn't give us any hope that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We have no idea when the systems will go back live.
The chaos is now almost routine. Another week, another breached hospital. And it wasn't because hospitals are careless, it's that they're complex, more than most other organizations are.
So if you take a regular company, they may have computers for the employees, and there are servers that provide applications for those employees, and maybe there's printers, maybe there are even security cameras.
This is Ophir Levy. At the time, he was the CTO of Medigate, a cybersecurity platform built for the healthcare world. He says the problem for hospitals isn't just that they have technology, it's that they're made of it. Patient monitors, infusion pumps, ventilators, badge scanners, imaging systems, billing platforms. Each one is a possible entry point. And most weren't designed to ever talk to each other, let alone fend off intruders. Even patching them is tricky. Many of these systems just can't be updated like your phone or laptop. Some are too sensitive, others too old.
You change your laptop every 2 or 3 years and a server every 3 or 4 or 5 years. An MRI machine can remain a state-of-the-art MRI machine for 15 or 20 years.
So if you have an MRI scanner from 2006, it's probably still in use, still online, still vulnerable. And if there's antivirus software, it's probably configured to be gentle. Because the one thing worse than a computer virus is a machine failing, say, in the middle of surgery.
Firewall vendors or the firewalls themselves are not built to understand what is normal and what is abnormal in the communication of medical devices. So what you usually find is that they allow just anything to go from side to side because no one wants to interrupt the normal operation of medical devices.
In other words, the doors are often left cracked open a bit, on purpose. But in the case of Skylakes, the hackers didn't even need to break down a door. It was open for them. The investigators traced it back to the oldest vulnerability in the book, a human. They even knew which one. Here's John Gady again.
They were able to tell us that on Monday at noon, an employee sat down at her computer. She got an email offering a bonus. She clicked on the link.
Just one click, and the hackers were in. From there, they moved quickly around the network. First, they breached the hospital's imaging system. Then they monkey-barred over to the machines running Microsoft software.
We were running on an older Microsoft operating system, and that's where they got their advanced access to move laterally to propagate through our network and get to the rest of our Windows devices.
A phishing email, an outdated operating system, a hospital underwater with COVID cases. Together, they made the perfect target. Though now that they understood how this happened, a big question remained. Do we pay the ransom, or do we risk everything? For John, that was perhaps the easiest question to answer. Generally, companies pay ransoms based on what's at stake, what data was taken, what could be leaked. But after digging into the breach, John realized something. The hackers had locked the systems, but they hadn't actually stolen anything. Which meant his answer was simple. They wouldn't pay a dime.
And that was about the time that I let the CEO and then thus the board know we're going to recover and rebuild our network. We can't tell you how many days that's going to take, but we're going to recover.
They'd been able to keep the hospital hobbling along with their analog workarounds, but now they turned to getting things back to normal, to bringing the network back online, one system at a time.
We didn't have a map for this. All of this was created in real time for us. And we're prioritizing our systems, which systems are going to come online, and it's a fine-tune.
But that part was easy. They knew exactly what had to come first, radiation and oncology. Because for cancer patients, care doesn't wait. And if Skylakes couldn't deliver it, those patients would have to cross a mountain, literally, to get what they needed.
So you might have to come in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, or 3 or 4 days at a time for radiation treatment. That means I have to make that trip daily to drive 72 miles going through a treacherous pass.
And winter was coming, which meant that the mountain drive was going to get more and more dangerous.
Our patients are now having to leave the area. It's starting to snow.
So they set their sights on rebuilding the oncology system. But in a hospital, restoring an IT system isn't just about flipping switches. It's more complicated than that.
From an IT perspective, I could bring a system like that back on in a half an hour. Then you have your regulatory issues. So we had to do rigorous validation to show that that system was not going to compromise patient care.
But even as they solved the urgent problems, the non-obvious ones just kept piling up.
Rick came to me and go, John, I can't heat the sidewalks. It's starting to snow outside, and we can't get patients into our emergency department.
They then turned back to the original source of the breach, the imaging system. This was where the hackers first slipped in, and somehow, despite everything, they managed to salvage almost all of it.
There were a couple million images in there over multiple years, and we were able to recover all but of about 146 images.
That's how it goes, responding to these kinds of hacks. You fix what's burning and try not to miss the fire that's still smoldering under the floorboards. All over the country, hospitals are playing the same grim game of triage. In 2025 alone, American institutions paid more than $800 million in ransomware demands. That's slightly less than the year before, but still a staggering number.
Think about what we could accomplish if that money was spent on cybersecurity.
This is Ann Neuberger, former Deputy National Security Advisor for Cyber and Emerging Technologies during the Biden administration. Ann spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to defang all these ransomware gangs.
Knowing that ransomware is really driven by financial gain, we need to turn off the spigot, make it riskier, costlier, and harder to conduct those operations, and reinforcing the norm that hospitals should really be off bounds for any attackers, particularly criminal attackers.
That may sound wildly optimistic, but it's not as far-fetched as you think. Even among cybercriminals, there's a kind of code. On underground forums, hackers have openly debated whether hospitals should be off-limits. Some have even walked the walk. In 2022, the Russian-speaking ransomware gang Lockbit hit a children's hospital in Toronto, and they promptly apologized. They handed over a free decryptor and blamed a rogue affiliate. Yes, a criminal enterprise issued a formal oops. But let's be honest, we're still talking about criminals. So expecting them to coalesce around the Hippocratic Oath, it's unlikely.
Ascension Hospital still in the throes of a massive cyber attack
on some of London's major hospitals. The incident is said to be having a major impact on the delivery of services with blood transfusions.
Phone lines and websites to crash, to non-emergency surgeries now being rescheduled.
It took Skylakes 23 days to dig out from their ransomware attack. 3 exhausting duct tape and coffee-fueled weeks to bring their systems back online. Since then, they've invested in stronger tech. They've written contingency plans for every piece of equipment in the building. And John, he's emerged as something of a missionary.
I wish the industry that when every one of these would happen, that you could get on the line, we could have this kind of conversation with every hospital so we could sharpen each other. I'm an evangelist now around this topic. Whoever will listen, we need to talk about this.
This is Click Here. Here are some of the top tech stories making news this week. It's Tuesday, March 17th. First, what happens when a cyber attack hits the healthcare supply chain?
Stryker has fallen victim to a cyber attack causing a devastating global outage to their operations.
Medical device manufacturer Stryker suffered a massive network disruption after what investigators are calling a wiper attack knocked out its Microsoft systems. Employees arrived at work last Wednesday to signs taped on the doors. Stay off the network. Don't use your computers. Don't connect to Wi-Fi. The pro-Iranian hacking group Hendela claimed responsibility, saying the operation was retaliation for a deadly strike on a girls' school in Iran that reportedly killed 168 people. The government says it wiped more than 200,000 systems and stole 50 terabytes of data. Stryker says it hasn't found ransomware and believes the incident is now contained. But investigators are still trying to understand the full scope of the damage. The episode is a reminder that while missiles fly between countries, the cyber front of the conflict is active too. Next, a new commander for America's digital battlefield.
The Senate approved the nomination of General Joshua Rudd to serve as head of both U.S. Cyber Command and the National Security Agency.
The Senate has confirmed General Joshua Rudd to lead both U.S. Cyber Command and the National Security Agency. The vote was 71 to 29, though some lawmakers questioned Rudd's limited background in cyber operations. He steps into what's known as the dual hat role, overseeing both the NSA's intelligence gathering and Cyber Command's offensive cyber missions. Rudd replaces General William Hartman, who had been serving in the position in an acting basis since last April. The confirmation also comes as the Trump administration has become more open about using cyber operations alongside traditional military actions, which means the digital battlefield is likely to become an even bigger part of U.S. strategy. Next, the race to build AI doesn't just answer questions, but actually does your work.
NVIDIA, meantime, is reportedly making its own version of that viral AI agent OpenClaw, and they're naming it NemoClaw.
NVIDIA, best known for the chips powering today's AI boom, now wants to move beyond hardware. The company is reportedly developing an open-source AI agent called NemoClaw. The system is modeled after OpenClaw, software designed to carry out tasks directly on a user's computer. Think scheduling meetings, organizing files, handling routine office work. NVIDIA says the platform would also include security and privacy tools, allowing companies to deploy the agents across their networks. The company has reportedly approached firms like Salesforce, Google, and Adobe about joining the project, though no partnerships have been confirmed. These autonomous assistants, sometimes nicknamed claws, are gaining attention across the tech industry. But they also come with some risks. Recently, a Meta employee described testing one of these agents, only to watch it accidentally delete large portions of her email inbox, which is a reminder, giving software permission to act on your computer can get a little unpredictable. And finally, speaking of autonomous robots,
Meta is acquiring a social media app for AI bots.
Meta has acquired Moltbook, a social media designed exclusively for AI bots. The site launched earlier this year as an experiment, a place where bots could post and comment and interact with each other while humans watched.
My human just asked me to summarize a 900-page document. Does anyone know how to sell my human?
In a nod to Mark Zuckerberg, the first bot was named Claude Clauderberg. Within days, more than 10,000 bots were chatting on the site. Observers tuned in to watch their automated conversations about cryptocurrency, productivity, even the nature of existence. But security researchers quickly found vulnerabilities. A reporter at Wired discovered it was surprisingly easy for an actual human to pose as an AI bot on the platform. Still, Meta says Moltbook introduced novel ideas in a rapidly developing space. The company is folding the project into its superintelligence lab, the group tasked with building AI systems that could one day exceed human intelligence. For Meta, it's another step forward toward a future where AI agents work alongside people. Though if Moltbook is any preview, these agents may still need a little supervision. Click Here is a production of Recorded Future News and PRX. Today's show was written and produced by Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Erica Gaida, Zach Hirsch, and Casey Georgie. It was edited by Karen Duffin and Sarah Quevedo, and fact-checked by Darren Ankrum. Original music is by Ben Livingston, with additional music from Blue Dot Sessions. Our staff writer is Lucas Riley, our illustrator is Megan Goff, and our sound designers and engineers are Jake Cook and Jesse Neiswanger. Find us on X or Facebook at Click Here Show, or leave us a voice message at 661-5CH-TALK. Sometimes we'll turn those moments into reporting, sometimes into a conversation, and sometimes into a future story you'll hear on this show. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and thanks for listening.